Hello and welcome to the next edition of the BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on digital transformation success stories. Our next Use of Sustainable Resources Improvement interview examines how more companies are plunging into the circular economy to make the most of their existing IT and business assets. We'll now hear how more enterprises are optimizing their IT kit and finding innovative means to reduce waste, as well as reduce energy consumption, and therefore their carbon footprint. Stay with us now as we learn how a circular economy mindset both improves sustainability as a benefit to individual companies, as well as the overall environment. Here to help us describe the latest approaches to sustainable IT is William McDonough. He's Chief Executive of McDonough Innovation and founder of William McDonough and Partners. Welcome to the show, William.
Thank you very much.
We're also here with Gabrielle Guinier. She's the head of environmental sustainability for BT Group based in London. Welcome, Gabrielle.
Hi there.
Glad you could join us. William, what are the top trends that are driving the need and even more importantly, the awareness about reducing waste, redundancy, and inefficiency in the IT department, in the data center?
I think there's material and energy are both fundamental, and I think people who work in systems that are optimized all the time really have difficulty with the concept of waste. And so really what this is about is eliminating the entire concept of waste. So one thing's waste is another thing's food. And so when we don't waste time, we have food for thought. I think a lot of people realize that it's great to do the right thing, and that would be to not destroy the planet in the process of what you do every day. But it's also great to do it the right way. And so I think when we see the idea of redesigning things to be safe and healthy, and then we find ways to circulate them ad infinitum, we're designing for next use instead of end of life. It's an exciting thing.
Now, if my example as an individual is any indication, I have this closet that is full of stuff that's been building up for probably 15 years. I've got phones and cables and modems in there that are outdated that I just haven't gotten around to dealing with. If that's the indication on a individual home level, I can imagine that the scale of this at the enterprise and business level globally is significant. How big is it?
Well, it's as big as you think it is, and we all have that everywhere. So what we're looking at is design is the first signal of human intention. If we design these things to be disassembled and we design them to be reusable, we design for next use. And I think that's the fundamental shift, is that we're designing now differently. So we don't say we design it for one-time use, take, make, waste. We design it for what's next. And it's really important, especially in IT, because these things are, in a certain way, they're ephemeral. We call them durables, but they're actually only meant to last a certain amount of time before we move on to the next thing. So if we design, your phone to last 25 years, the odds of you using the same phone for 25 years are pretty low right now. The notion that we could design these things to become useful again quickly is really part of the system. And we're seeing that now. We now see the recycling of phone boards that actually go all the way back to base materials in very cost-effective ways. You can mine gold at $210 a ton out there, or you can mine phone boards at about $27,000 a ton. It's pretty exciting.
So there's an economic impetus. Gabrielle, tell us why this is important to BT and your organization.
And I think something that we've seen change is how we're dealing and talking to consumers about this. So now we're actually encourage them to return their phones. We're paying them for it so they can just walk into a store and get money back. And I think that's a really powerful incentive for people to now return their phones.
This concept of design for reuse and recovery is part of this cradle-to-cradle concept that you've helped really establish. Tell us a little bit about why cradle-to-cradle is important and why that then leads to this idea of a circular economy.
When we first posited cradle-to-cradle, we said you can look at the Earth and realize there are two fundamental systems at play. One is the biological system, of which we're a part, natural systems. And in that, waste equals food, and it wants to be safe and healthy. The things you wear, the water, the food, all those things. Those are biological nutrients. And then we have technology. So once we started banging on rocks and making metals and plastics and things like that, that's really technical nutrition. It's another metabolism. So we don't want to get the two confused. So when we talk about life cycle, we like to refer to living things having a life cycle. But your telephone is not a living thing. And we talk about it having a life cycle and then end of life. Well, wait a minute. It's not alive. It talks to you, but it's not alive. So really, it's a product of service. So in Cradle to Cradle, we say there are things that our biology need to be safe and healthy and go back to soil safely. And then there's technology. And technology needs to come back into technology and be used over and over again. It's for our use. And so this brings up the concept we introduced, which is product as a service. That actually what you want from the phone is not 4,600 different kinds of chemicals. You want a telephone you can talk into for a certain period of time. And it's a service you want. And so we see this being products as services. And that becomes the circular economy. So once you see that, you design it for use. If instead of saying design for end of life, I'm going to throw it in a landfill or something, you say, I designed it for next use. That means it's designed for disassembly. We know we're going to use it again, and it becomes part of a circular economy, which will grow the economy because we're doing it again.
So it seems to be a win-win-win, lots of incentives, lots of rationale, not only doing well, but doing good as companies. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise announced a big initiative about this at their Madrid Discover conference. And the other part of this, I think, is that people don't appreciate is the amount of energy that goes into these massive data centers. We hear that the hyperscale cloud companies are investing billions of dollars each a year in these new data centers. It certainly behooves them to have low energy, but the amount of energy that data centers are responsible for is growing at a fantastic rate and is producing a larger percentage of the overall carbon footprint. So let's get in briefly, Bill, why carbon and energy need to be considered in this whole equation.
Well, clearly, the issues concerning climate and energy management. If our energy is coming from fossil fuels, we have fugitive carbon in the atmosphere. And so that's something that's now a toxin. We know that. A toxin is material in the wrong place, wrong dose, wrong duration. So this has to be dealt with. The IT companies is quite phenomenal, really. The companies that are leading in this are companies like Apple, Google, Facebook, BT, that are reducing their energy consumption by being efficient. And they're also adding renewables to their mix to the point that they're going to be a major part of the power use, but it's renewably sourced, carbon-free. That's really interesting. So I think when we realize the dynamic of the energy required to move data, and that the people who do this have the possibility of doing it with renewably powered things, it's a harbinger for something really critical, because we can do this with renewable energy as electricity. It's not like asking some heating plant to shift gears quickly or some transportation system to change its power systems. Those things are good too. But this industry is based on being intelligent and understanding the statistical significance of what you do.
Gabrielle, how is BT looking at the carbon and energy equation and helping to be more sustainable, not only in its own operations, but across your supply chain, all the companies that you work with as partners and vendors?
So just back to Bill's point, really two things. One, we're focusing on being more energy efficient. So even though we're seeing data traffic grow by around 40% per year, we have 9 consecutive years of reducing energy consumption in our networks. Bill's second point around renewables. So we have an ambition to be using 100% renewable electricity by 2020. Last year we were at 81%, and I'm pleased to say that recently we did a couple of new deals, and we're now up at 96%. So, we are getting there in terms of the renewables. And I think what's been really remarkable is how we've seen that companies coming together in coalitions have really driven the demand and supply of renewable energy, which has been absolutely fantastic. And so coming back to how we work with our suppliers like HP, for example, I think as a customer, we have a really important role to play in sending demand signals to our suppliers of what we're looking for. And obviously we are looking for our suppliers to be more sustainable. And I think the initiatives that HP are announcing here in Madrid are absolutely fantastic and what we're looking for.
Bill, it's great to hear about companies like BT that are taking a bellwether approach to this leadership position. HPE is being aggressive in terms of how it encourages companies to recycle and use kit that's actually been reconditioned so that you get more life out of the same resource. How much of this energy issue, though, are we looking at for those companies that might be laggards? If you're not aggressive, if you're not on a leadership trajectory in terms of sustainability, what's the likely outcome in a few years in terms of the amount of energy in the environment that is coming from data centers?
This is a key question, and I think one of the things when a company like HPE says, we're going to care about this, what I like about that is it's a signal that they're providing services. And a lot of the companies, when they're trying to survive in business or they're trying to move through different agendas that they have to manage in modern commerce, they may not have time to figure out how to get renewably powered. But if you look at companies that can and the ones that do and the ones who know how to manage those things, it becomes just part of a service. That's a really elegant thing. So if a company like HPE says, okay, how many problems of yours can we solve? Oh, we'll solve that one for you too. Here, you do what you do, we'll all do what we do, we'll all do this together. So I think that the notion that it becomes part of the service is a very elegant thing.
Now, an organization like BT has got a head of environmental sustainability. Lots of companies have sustainability organizations, but how closely are they aligned or in collaboration with the IT organization? Or do IT organizations need to perhaps create their own sustainability head or evangelists? How are we seeing the IT department as a whole becoming more mindful about sustainability, and how should companies be perhaps driving a bit more of the point in the arrow in that direction?
I think the IT is really critical now because it's at the core of the operation. It touches all the information is moving through the system. So that's the place where we can inform the activities and our intentions. But the point today is that humans, as we see artificial intelligence coming, we have to remember there's this thing called human intelligence that goes with it. And there's a natural intelligence that goes with being on the world. So the idea that we start with our values of what is the right thing to do before we talk about value is sort of like Plato talked about what's right and wrong or what's good and bad. Aristotle talked about what is less and more, truth in number. So when we combine these two, you really have to start with your values first, do the right thing, and then go to the value and do it the right way. And that means, for example, let's not get confused, because if you're being less bad and you think it's good, you have to stop and think, because you're being bad by definition, just less so. So we get confused. What we really want to be is more good. So let's do less bad for sure, but let's also go out and do more good. And the statistical reference points for data are going to come through the IT. So the IT is actually a traffic control for good behavior.
Gabrielle, some thoughts about why sustainability is an important drive for BT in general, and maybe even some insights into how the IT function can benefit.
I don't think that we need a separate sustainability function in IT. I think it comes back to what Bill mentioned about value. And I think, for BT, sustainability is part of the company's ethos. So we want to see that throughout our organization. So I sit in a central team, but obviously work closely with IT. And it's part of, sharing a common vision and a common goal.
It seems to me that for those folks that are planning on the hybrid IT future, where they're making decisions about how much public cloud, how much private cloud, how much traditional IT do we hold on to and for how long, that perhaps they should be factoring more of these considerations around things like total cost, total sustainability in terms of a life cycle of products, and then that all-important carbon and energy equation. Any thoughts, Bill, on where an operational planning integrity can gain more insight into the environmental factors? How do we put numbers on this in ways that people can then justify on that all-important total cost of ownership and return on investment type of factoring?
Well, since the only constant in modern business life is high-speed change, you have the change built into your day-to-day operation. And so what is the change? Change will have an impact. The question is, will it have a positive impact or a negative impact? So if we look at the business, we want a positive impact economically. If we want the environment, we would like to have a positive impact there too. So I think when you start to look at all of it together at once as one triple top-line behavior, you realize it's about revenue generation, not just about profit derivation. So you're not just trying to squeeze out every penny to get profit, which is what's left over. That's the manager's job. You're trying to figure out what's the right thing to do and bring in the revenue. That's the executive's job. So the executives see this and realize it's revenue generation, actually. And so we can balance our CapEx and our OpEx, and we do optimization across it. And that means a lot of equipment that's sitting out there that might be suboptimal is still serviceable, and it's a valuable asset. Let it run. but be ready to refurbish it when the time comes. But in the meantime, you're going to shift to the faster, better systems that are optimized across the entire platform. Because you start saving energy, you start saving money. That's all there is to it.
It really seems like we're at the right time in the economy and the evolution of IT, that those economics are working in the favor of sustainability initiatives. It's no coincidence that we're seeing here at HPE that they're talking more about the economics of IT and as well as the sustainability. They're very closely linked. Have you done any studies or any factoring at BT that allows you to make the economic case for sustainability, not just that it's a good or proper thing to do?
Most definitely. So just last year through our energy efficiency program, we saved £29 million. And since we started looking at this in 2009-10, we've saved over £250 million. So there's definitely an economic case for being energy efficient.
Well, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been exploring how more companies are plunging into the circular economy to make the most of their existing IT and business assets. And we've learned how a circular economy mindset both improves sustainability as well as enhances the ability of companies to adapt to change and put in more of a hybrid IT factored economic benefit. So please join me in thanking our guests. We've been here with William McDonough, Chief Executive of McDonough Innovation and founder of William McDonough and Partners. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we've also been joined by Gabrielle Guinier. She's the head of environmental sustainability for BT Group based in London. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you very much.
And a big thank you to our audience for joining us for this BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer Digital Transformation Success Story. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Interarbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise-sponsored interviews. Thanks again for listening. Please pass this on to your IT community, and do come back next time.